Jonathan Gannon today, head coach of the Cardinals. If the Cards are where they want to be when it comes to the details.
Well, I think every week presents a different challenge, you know what I mean? But I would say that where we are right now, I would say no, we haven't. You know what I mean? It starts with me and the coaches. So that's always an area of emphasis. And you don't know how the game's going to materialize, but I think we need to do a better job of that.
Bob McManaman, columnist over at AZ Central, a colleague of ours for many, many years, friend of ours for many years, wrote in his column today that was titled, "Oh, to be a fly on the wall at the Arizona Cardinals film review." This was actually yesterday. Wrote in his column, quote, "Call it self-preservation by necessity, because Sunday's nightmare put Gannon directly on the NFL coaching hot seat. Yes, it's just a month into the season of his second year in the rebuild of this franchise, but the results clearly haven't been good enough or what everyone expected," close quote.
21 games so far. He's got 5 wins, 5-16. NFL.com, CBS.com, Nick Sirianni. Nick Sirianni, Doug Petersen. They mentioned all the coaches that were on a hot seat. This one kind of caught me off guard a little bit on a CBS Sports. NFL coach hot seat ranking. They named the guys, and then they got honorable mention Jonathan Gannon, second-year head coach. I'm not ready to put on the list just yet, but he's in the honorable mentions.
That's what they wrote about him. Can I just say the 5 real quick? Tell everybody the 5.
Yeah, go ahead.
Eberflus of the Bears. Sorry, Lauren. Saleh of the Jets. Sirianni of the Eagles. Dable of the Giants. And Doug Peterson's number 1 of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Right.
Sorry, go ahead.
The cupboard was so bare. It was so bad at the end. There's no way that I'm going to make a decision on Jonathan Gannon after this season. There's just no way. You can't always keep firing coaches after a year or two. Like, you got to give guys more opportunity. So I think that he is a good coach. I think Monty Ossenfort is a good general manager. I believe in the duo until I don't. I don't think that the Washington game, as bad as it was, and you referred to it as the first real embarrassing moment for those guys. This is the first real embarrassing moment.
And
you got humiliated at home, and you had no answers for Jaden Daniels in Washington. Your offense was trash. Your defense was trash. It was just a bad game. I still believe that these are the right guys for the job. I think there's got to be more of a commitment from ownership. And I think Monty Ossenfort isn't going to go spend free agency money on a team that's probably not going to be very good. Once he feels like they get better, then I think he'll spend that free agency money. So I think that they understand that the way to build this team is through the draft, not free agency. And it's a lot to ask to just have 2 drafts and expect them to all of a sudden be a really good football team.
Yeah, like I agree with a lot of what you said. And I think that it was bad Sunday against Washington. And it was really the first truly embarrassing moment of the Gannon-Monty Ossenfort partnership. And I'd be lying to you and everybody listening right now if I didn't walk away from that game going, okay, I thought they were closer than this. I didn't think we had games like this still in the system that we had to kind of get out of our system a little bit. But to have the pendulum swing so far, so quickly to the other side of, after 3 games, we were all encouraged. You played Buffalo tight for a half. You played the Lions tight for a half. You handled the Rams in a way that you haven't handled them in a decade. To have the pendulum swing that quickly, that fast, especially using last year's numbers as any sort of, last year Joshua Dobbs was their quarterback for half the season, right? Clayton Tune was their starting quarterback for a game in Cleveland. Kyler Murray was coming off an ACL injury where you just knew it was going to, I just never expected after one game, because we really are talking, I'm not talking about last year, I'm talking about one game this year. To have the pendulum swing that far, that fast into this space seems awfully quick for us to be having this conversation, doesn't it? Does to me anyway. Awfully quick.
Because of the Rams game. If the Rams game if they lost a close game to the Rams, you'd be like, all right, here we are. It's like the Rams game gave you this crazy hope because of the way they beat the Rams, the way they dominated them, to the point where I said it the next day. I heard Bickley Murata talking about how Burnsy's got him at 11 wins. Maybe he's right.
Yeah.
There was just not. Now, is that the outlier? That game was just that everything came together,
or was last week the outlier? See that to me is
it could be
maybe
Detroit although Detroit kind of handled them. It was close, but they kind of
The
handle
defense
them.
played a lot. I mean, watching what Detroit's offense did to Seattle in that game on Monday night, I'm still impressed with at least what the Cardinals defense did to them in the second half. I mean, they made Jared Goff look mortal in that game in the second half. But I think we've boiled it down to the question, which game is the outlier?
Right,
Was
the Buffalo and the Detroit game are more of who they are.
Right.
We're not good enough to beat the top teams, but we could play them close.
Yes. Was
Is
the Rams game the outlier?
We're good enough to be a top team with the Rams, or we suck because we can't beat the Commanders or play with them.
And I think that's why everybody's having a hard time coming to like grips with all of this.
So
because we've had two extreme examples of what this team can be.
So if things go on par, if the Cardinals, if what I would expect based on what we've seen so far is that the Cardinals lose to the 49ers by 7 to 10 points. They play them tough. They don't get blown out, and they play a close game, but they lose because they're not good enough. And then maybe the same thing in Green Bay. They play close enough, but they don't. And then that's kind of who they are. They're a few players away from being able to be a good football team.
Here's the other thing the other reason why I think the hot seat conversation is a little misplaced right now. I think, and I don't know if you agree with this, that the conversation needs to be more about Kyler Murray than it is Jonathan Gannon. I think the conversation.
You know how I feel.
I think I kind of touched the nerve on this one because I think I know you feel the same way. I think if we're going to really have a conversation about the future of this organization and the direction of this organization, that is far more a Kyler Murray question than it is a Jonathan Gannon question. And I think that's this season, rather than it being a referendum on Jonathan Gannon and his ability to win football games. I think it's way more a referendum on Kyler Murray and his ability to be the quarterback of this team and whether he's the guy you want to build around.
I wasn't going to go here, but I'm going to now. One of the things that I did over the last 24 hours was, just talk to some people and try to get a feel on what is Kyler's contract, just to see. He's counting $45 million against the cap in 2025. If you move on in March of 2025, it'd be a $33.2 million cap hit if he's traded on or before June 1st. If they release him on or before June 1st, his hit would be $63 million. That figure can be taken over 2 years if it occurs after June 1st. So you start, if nothing is done until 2026, then the cap hit becomes more manageable at $18 to $20 million. So I just looked at it. I'm not saying I'm going there yet. Mm-hmm. But I have seen Kyler Murray for 6 years, and I think he's a good middle-of-the-pack quarterback. I don't think he sucks. I don't think he's bottom 10, but I certainly don't think he's top 10. I've been very consistent with this. I don't hate Kyler. I want Kyler to be great. I don't see him as a top 10 quarterback, and I don't see him as a bottom 10 quarterback, but I see him somewhere in the middle. And when you're in the middle, it's the worst play. I would rather be top 10 or bottom 10. At least I know what I have.
Yeah, direction.
At least I know which way to go. Stay with my guy, get off my guy. The middle area is really, really difficult grounds because you got a guy you kind of believe in, but you don't believe it all the way. But you also have a guy that you have doubts about. You're not sure that he can take you where you want to go. That's a hard spot to be in.
It's funny. Actually, Kyler Murray was asked about this today on the Commanders game, kind of being that first real clunker in his relationship with Jonathan Gannon.
Yeah, I was just trying to hold it back. We got our ass kicked. Like that's like, and that was the first time that's happened, since he's been here. At least I feel like since I've been playing, now that he's been here. But that was the first time that's happened. And no, it's not a good feeling, especially at home, to get beat like that. But at the same time, the message, it doesn't change, and his confidence doesn't waver. Our confidence doesn't waver. We have to play harder. We have to be smarter, and we got to execute better.
Look, I said this on Monday, and I really do believe this. I know we're always in a rush to judgment. We're gonna judge Kyler based off of every game, and apparently now we're gonna judge Coach Gannon after every single game. Folks, we've got all season. And at the end of the season, and I know this is kind of the cop-out, easy answer, but I think it's also the truth. At the end of the season, we'll know. We'll know at the end of the season.
Better.
And you're right. We better have an idea of whether he is or he isn't. We don't need to decide that now. That doesn't need to be determined today as it relates to either Kyler or Gannon or any of it. But by the end of the year, we better have an answer one way or another, whether, yes, you're on the right path, no, you're not.
I think what he did last year is he bought himself this year. I don't think he...
You're talking about Kyler now, not Gannon. Okay.
Kyler.
I want to make sure you weren't talking about Gannon.
No, Kyler. I think with Kyler, I think he bought himself another year. to see what he can do. And at the end of this year, we'll evaluate him. And I think Gannon, back to the Gannon point, I think no matter what, I'm giving Gannon next year to see what he can do with Monty to get more players on this roster.
Thanks for watching Burns and Gambo. Click to see more from the guys and hit the button in the middle to subscribe so you never miss a video from Arizona sports.